The ouster of Niger President Mohamed Bazoum on July 26 has been a blow to political stability in the region. Niger, under him, had a strong security partnership with the US and France, but reports say he had taken steps to curtail the powers of the military. But the bigger question, what next for Niger? Joining us to talk more about this is Dr Oluwole Ojewale, security expert and regional coordinator for Central Africa at the Institute of Security in Senegal. Thank you very much for talking to us this afternoon. Let me begin by asking you, what do you think is the future or what next for Niger? Is there any scope of Mohamed Bazoum's reinstatement anytime soon?
Well, I think the options are two now. And the first one is that if Ecowas is able to use diplomacy, we might have a transitional government in place because I believe the juntas are also going to have their own demands if democracy is to be restored in the country. So for a transitional government, we might be looking at 12 to 18 months in terms of the path to diplomacy. The second part, which is a bit difficult, is the part of the deployment of force on the part of Ecowas. You know, everybody can predict the beginning of a war, but nobody can tell how it's going to end. So in their own imagination, if they think they can prosecute the war, probably dislodge the army in a very short period, then they might be able to restore democracy and restore Bazoum. But that is a very hard part to imagine now.
Right. Dr. Ojewale, also Ecowas has had close links with the EU in its security and political functioning. What is the kind of influence that the EU or Western nations can actually have? And what external pressures are the junta leaders here referring to?
Yes, in terms of the EU and the Western partners, the United States of America, France, I think that has already commenced because sanctions have been placed and then they are saying they are going to cut the foreign aid that is committed to Niger, which is in excess of $2 billion. So I think that has already started, and then Ecowas has also imposed some sanctions on the country and individuals that are involved in the military coup. That is the part that is obvious now. The second part is if Ecowas goes in the direction of the use of force, I envisage that there's going to be some form of military support from the part of the West. But that is also at an imaginary level now. But I believe there's going to be some sort of commitment, perhaps in terms of military support to prosecute the war against the junta in Niger.
I see. So you see that as a possibility. But Niger has also the support of Burkina Faso and Mali, junta leaders from there. Are we going to be seeing the formation of a military bloc to counter the West-backed, Western African bloc, which was in a way Bazoum was part of?
Yes, I think so. But I think a lot is involved in terms of military propaganda now, because the whole idea is also probably for ECOWAS to sit back and take some moment to really rethink and re-strategize whether they are able to go ahead with the war against Niger this time around. But if the war did ensue, it's very possible that there's going to be that block of Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali in this regard. And that is the reason why I think the path to diplomacy is the best path to take now, because the war can get into a stalemate, and then if that happens, probably you have a situation in which you possibly dislodge the army from the army, but on the long run, you create a new rebel in the region that is going to add to the multiple insurgencies that is going on in the country now. So the big question is ECOWAS going to become an army of occupation, or they just want to dislodge the army, then restore democracy in the country and then move back? If that is the case, then how do you control such an hostile territory? It's going to be a very difficult task that ECOWAS will be facing in Niger, looking at all these indices and variables put together.
Mm-hmm. Right. There's also, of course, speculation about where exactly is the military junta getting its strength and confidence from to counter ECOWAS. There are also reports saying that there could be a Russia angle to this and a Wagner presence as well in the region.
We can't rule it out, but what I know is that at present, Putin himself is overwhelmed with the war in Ukraine. So if the junta in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger have drawn their effrontery from the supposed support or potential support from Putin, they might be thinking too highly of themselves in this regard, because Putin has a war that is prosecuting at the home front. So there's little support in terms of military support that is going to give to such a rebellious country like Niger or Burkina Faso or Mali in this regard. Looking at the combined strength of ECOWAS countries that have put their defense services together and the possible support that they might get from the West, I think it's an uphill task. And the junta in those three countries probably have an overrated estimate of themselves if they want to go to the war, basically because of the potential support that they might be expecting from Putin. Putin is facing his own dire challenges now, and there's little that he can do for such countries.
Right. Dr. Ojewale, then also the US and France see Niger, the largest country in West Africa, as a bulwark against Islamist insurgency in the region. There's Al-Qaeda, the ISIS, and several other jihadist groups that operate in the Sahel region. That is bound to suffer as well. Yes,
it's very, very important. Niger happens to be the democratic wall that separates two different blocks within the sub-Saharan Africa in terms of military incursion into politics in the recent time. I'm talking about Sudan and Chad to the right, and then Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea to the left. So now that that wall has crashed down, that democratic wall that Niger represents has crashed down, the West is not going to fold their hands and be looking, considering the fact that the largest drone base that the United States of America has overseas is also based in Niger. In fact, when the G5 G5 Sahel security architecture collapsed in Mali, they moved the military infrastructure to Niger. So a lot of critical investment has been made in Niger. And even in terms of democracy, there is also significant development that has taken place under the Bazoum-led administration with respect to Western support. And the fact that it has been the grant that has been able to serve as that bulwark against Islamic radical the encroachment of the Islamic fundamentalists in the region. So I think all this put together is the reason why the West is also not holding its hand and is ready to work with ECOWAS to be able to ensure that democracy is restored in the country within the shortest time possible. But I am optimistic that there is not going to be war, irrespective of what anybody is saying. That is my position now, because if you look at the multiple layers of insurgency going on in the region, that place is going to become completely ungovernable, and then it's going to become a new threat to relatively stable countries in West Africa if these countries decide to go to war against each other. So I have said that there's going to be the part of diplomacy that is going to be called explore and consider to douse and de-escalate the tension in the region now with respect to military incursion to politics in Niger.
Right. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Oluwole Ojewale, security expert and regional coordinator for Central Africa at the Institute of Security Studies in Senegal, for your perspective on this developing story coming out of Niger.
Thank you so much for having me.